Hey guys, it's Abby here. So when I was working on this printer, I was powering it on and then the printer turned to a black screen and started flashing. I hadn't seen this error before, but I figured that it had something to do possibly with the main board. So I was going to try to switch the main board out, and so I took off the back duplexer and the back side cover, or the back fax cover. I took off the two screws, and I took the two screws off the top of the scanner. So here I am taking off that scanner and undoing the wires that are connected to the main board and taking off that top scanner. Then I undid the screw to that hinge, and I am taking the 7 screws off the top of this top cover, and I will wiggle that top cover off to expose the printer. Then I will work on taking this ground wire off and the 2 screws that hold this LCD panel down. Here I am just checking my FFC cables along the way to make sure that none of my FFC cables have any damaged pins or any blown fuses. But as I checked all of them, they seemed to be in good condition and they all looked a-okay. So it really didn't seem that that was my problem there. So as I continue to undo the wires, the bottom wires to the main board, and take off that ground wire and take off the 5 screws that hold in the main board, 2 up front and 3 in the back, here I am taking that off, and this is where I found my problem. I did not have a Wi-Fi board connected to my main board, which when the printer is powering on, it does check to see that that Wi-Fi board is there, and because that was missing, that is what was causing that error. So here I am just looking for 2 screws to screw the Wi-Fi board into the main board. So I found 2 screws, and then I'll just screw that in. Once I put my main board back together the right way, I wanted to fit it back into place and work my FFC cables back onto the board and fit my wires back in. There'll be 4 screws to hold the main board in place. There's going to be 1 at the top, 1 with that ground wire there. There's be 1 screw that's deep down, and actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws, sorry, and then 2 screws up front there, 1 facing down and 1 facing the rails. So here I am putting back on that front cover, that side cover, and then plugging in my cables, my bottom cables. Finding a nice way to stick that yellow cable, that black and red yellow cable, under that side cover, just so where it pops out, and then putting that FFC cable in and that wire around it. Then I can go ahead and screw in that ground wire after I get that in. And then remember to put in those 2 screws on either side of the LCD panel before putting in that top cover. And you want to snap that down in place just to make sure it's flush all the way down over top. And then you can put in the 7 screws back on top. And then you're going to want to have to put in that hinge and the screw on top of that hinge, and to hold that scanner in place to help it open up and close. And then we can work on putting in our FFC cable back together the right way, along with our cables, connecting them to the right spot. I try to tuck the cables back far enough so that way they don't stick out for when I put that fax cover on. and then I can screw in the 2 screws to hold the fax cover on and put the duplexer back in, along with putting in the top 2 screws going down into the scanner. Here I wanted to turn it back on just to check, and it pops up. I'm going to press no, and here it starts loading again. I fast forward through this part. It took a little while to load, but let's see. Here's why I fast forward. And eventually it goes all the way through. So happy printing, it worked.